From Shields to Shells, this is Sweaty Gamer 1939, and this is Total War Rome 2. And I am being ambushed by Illyrian forces, where they have two separate armies coming in. This is the initial first wave of forces that comes in. I have to try to make do with the limited time that I had to try to situate my troops. They don't really give you that much time in an ambush, so I place a pretty good perimeter here with my forces kind of like holding the lines on all fronts. Pulling back my general who's up front. As you can see here, he's running back, and I am going to replace the line with heavy troops. I'm panning the line here. As you can see, my lines are holding. They do have the uphill advantage on this side, and this line is a little bit unorganized, and my men are kind of a little bit surrounded there, but that's okay. They're holding, and then on my right flank here, they're doing okay. My velites or skirmishers are doing a good job of throwing stuff over my boys in the front here because they are on a hill. And the Hastati holding the line here and creating angles with their pylons and chucking it into the crowd of Illyrians. Pylons are an effective tool that Romans used to render the shields of an enemy useless. They would just chuck it into an oncoming advance, and then they would hook into your shield, and you didn't really have time to unpry it. So you'd already started off the battle with a handicap. You literally had no shield, and you were going against the Roman army who had these huge shields, and you had to figure out how to exploit the weaknesses. Illyrians here are using the high ground effectively with their archers to try to whittle down some of my troops. Cavalry using the uphill advantage and smashing into my Hastati here. As you can see, it's taking a little bit of recovery for my troops to try to stabilize again and form the lines, but they're holding. Taking a closer look on the battle here. All right, we're able to hold the lines and reform. And as you can see, my velites, the javelin men, throwing their javelins into the crowds of Illyrians, accompanied by my heavy Roman troops throwing their pylons. Looks like this part of the line struggling a little bit. Some of my triarii pulling back. It looks like the lines have a little bit of a lull here, so I take advantage of the lull and try to readjust my lines to try to get a better grip on the battlefield.
Understood. Stand ready. Defensive testudo. Send screaming to the afterlife.
As you can see here, I've given a corner edge to my line here to try to create angles for my pylons to be thrown into the crowd. These boys are still holding the line. The Hastati, these young boys, are still holding. Lost a lot of them, but they're still doing their job. Gaps in the lines are always okay, but you have to have something to brace the gaps. See, my pylons are being utilized here on these Illyrian troops as they're focused on these men here. A desperate cavalry charge to try to save the line of these Illyrian troops, but unfortunately comes to no avail. Only a handful of Illyrian troops are left from the first wave. I'm trying to get rid of them before the next wave comes in. Panning over here, we're still working on these far edges of the lines. We have another fresh set of spears coming in to face my Hastati, but looks like they don't have the heart to face a full, well-organized Roman line. Yep, they gave up and ran off. I don't blame them. This would be pretty intimidating to see. And this is what made Rome so great, was its ability to have patience, to allow the enemy to throw as many objects or whatever they're going to throw at the lines and hold and be able to effectively work the problem. Finally, the back of my lines are starting to stabilize and the Illyrian forces are being driven off. And this method right here, the testudo, was what made the Roman army so unique. Expanding on what I said earlier, this allowed for patience, buying time, and assessing the situation before proceeding. Time allows communication to occur between the lines and adjustments to be made when needed. So I'm adjusting my lines here. I'm sending in some more troops to kind of get ready for this little onslaught of Illyrian forces, little pockets that are left of the initial wave. But as you can see, they are overwhelmed by the amount of forces that are in that area. Looks like the archers are now out of ammo and they're now taking to the sword, which these guys are ready for. My triarii with their spears ready for the oncoming light infantry attack. Hellenistic age always favored the tight formations to be able to defeat oncoming waves of enemies. If you guys ever seen the movie 300, they show what the Spartans did against the Persians in Thermopylae. It wasn't until later, till King Philip II, Alexander the Great's father, came up with a way to effectively deal with the Spartan army. Great use of Illyrian cavalry here, smashing in one of the weak parts of my lines. But I do have my triarii formed up behind it. As you can see here, they get into a square formation, so if they are able to get through, they will have to deal with a wall of spears. This formation actually lasts a pretty long time throughout history, I believe all the way up to the Napoleonic era. And here comes another wave of Illyrian cavalry to smash into my lines. But they're smashing into my principes, a pretty heavy infantry. Looks like they didn't really have enough momentum to get off a good charge there. Panning over onto these lines here. These guys are pretty weak there. I noticed that, but they're not done yet. These guys need to take the high ground if I'm going to get ready for this next advance. The Illyrian forces are still marching in, so I take advantage of the lull in combat and march my hastati up on this hill, so I don't have to deal with them having the uphill advantage. My principes are taking center field here. I'm trying to keep these cavalry at bay while I adjust the back lines. Great play by Illyrian cavalry here, smashing into a weak point on my flank and delivering some blows to my principes, my heavy unit. But I effectively pulled them back, and I have my triarii here with spears rushing in to fill the gap to try to deal with the exploited area that the Illyrian forces are taking advantage of. I send in my other principes unit here to try to deal with these oncoming forces by taking a little bit of the high ground and luring them in. They take the bait to try to give support to their buddies, but then I exploit this by marching in on their flank. I'm able to get a good chunk of my Roman army over there with my triarii in place on the left flank and my hastati on the right. You can see here the triarii unit just shows up with their spears to help reinforce the lines. Key element to worry about here is attrition. I know that my troops are getting tired, so I need to start replacing them and cycling them out, allowing them to rest and regain their strength. So right here I pull out my triarii unit off the line and send in my principes, my heavy sword unit, to hold the line instead while these guys take a rest. sort of lay a trap here to try to see where these Illyrian forces were going to go. I left some troops in the rear as for flexibility to deploy them wherever I needed. They commit to this area here. I send in troops on their right flank to exploit this commitment.
Defensive testudo! To forward!
Now that my triarii have rested, I send in them to replace this part of the line which is getting weak. And I fill the gaps. I did not send in my right flanking maneuver just yet. I wanted them to fully commit to the areas that they're moving towards. And then now, as you can see, I am moving my troops accordingly and attacking their flank with my Principes, my heavy unit, to hold them here as I move my Hastati more further on the right. And then I effectively sandwich them in here. Now the Illyrian forces in this particular area are sandwiched between two lines of Roman troops. Reinforce this area with triarii and get them in square formation just in case anything approaches on my right flank. Then I send in my Hastati full force on this right flank and push on the Illyrian lines. And my Principes is about to smash into the back of their lines and sandwich them even further. Rock and a hard place for these Illyrian troops. The Roman army was so hard to deal with at the time because they had effective formations that allowed for flexibility to be able to accommodate anything that they encountered on the battlefield. And then also the flexibility gave them the possibility for flanking maneuvers when needed, as you can see I demonstrated here. Absolutely brutal. Imagine being pinned between your own men trying to flee while the enemy is just stabbing their way forward at you. I'm pushing in my Hastati a little bit more and my Principes to bring on the pressure to get them to fold. My triarii here rushing into the weak spot of my lines to add a little bit more pressure and relieve the troops that are getting tired in this area. Now that the lines are going a little stagnant, I send in my triarii to help reinforce my right flanking maneuver. I love using triarii as my reinforcing units just because of the level of their armor and the fact that anything that smashes through my lines is going to be greeted with a wall of spears. The Illyrian forces here are having a hard time recovering because of the commitment they made, and I have the high ground and I am pushing on the right flank. At this point, it's just about mopping them up and driving them off.
Attacking Testudo! Glory to Rome!
The Illyrian forces are making an attempt here to try and do something here on my left flank, but my Principes, my heavy units, are there waiting. A lot of Illyrian troops are fleeing at this point in the battle, so I send in the hammer to hammer it home. Uphill advantage here, so now my troops can effectively rush their flank. I let my guys do their thing and just hack and slash their way to victory. From shields to shells, if anybody likes this type of content, I'll break it down. Play a lot of Hell Let Loose and beyond. Stay tuned. Discord and Twitch links below, and a Patreon for those who want to support the channel a little bit more. I will see you guys in the next one.